is it on your rating?
I haven't gotten there yet, Gabby.
No, but you're gonna cut this.
You're gonna have to watch the video. You're gonna have to watch the video. You're gonna have to watch the video.
I'll just hear it through
You're gonna
the
watch
doorway.
You're gonna watch the video.
Just...
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do something that I've been seeing around BookTube, obviously, since the beginning of the new year. It's a lot of people wrapping up the books that they read in 2020. Some people who read hundreds of books a year are able to do the one video with the top recommendations, one video with their least favorite recommendations. And I only read 39 books in 2020, so I don't feel like I have enough books to be able to do that. So I was thinking of a way that I could do this kind of video, wrap up all the books that I read last year, and in a way that's still kind of fun and informative. And I came up with ranking tier lists. So I have all of my 39 books that I read loaded up on here. And to make it a little bit fun for myself, I made all 5 of the tiers named after kind of like funny things or themes in videos that I've seen a lot. So for my least favorite books, I've labeled it straight and conservative TikTok. It's not necessarily that it's bad objectively. The next category is upsetting Hank Green wanting to eat things that we shouldn't. There has been a trend that I see of people bonding over wanting to eat the forbidden fruit. There's been wild glizzies. There's been glass, lava, grass, and I think those TikToks are absolutely hilarious. And I also think Hank Green is absolutely hilarious. While in theory, it's really funny, I personally just don't like seeing Hank Green very upset. Next is Da Vinci. I made this the category because it's the truest chaotic neutral I could find. It's hilarious, but it's also just very dumb. So meeting in the middle, neutral, I think that's a great middle tier for this. Next is Miss Connie. I think these kind of like POV videos are so heartwarming and so sweet. My only issue is I wish there were more of them. The top tier that I named is something that I think is absolutely flawless, completely perfect. Every single video is impeccable. And that's Ratatouille the musical. The feeling that I have for that musical and that Gen Z creation is definitely how I feel about the books in this tier. I actually filmed this video yesterday, and it's a shame because I thought my makeup was so cute yesterday. Insert a clip. The sun setting so early definitely makes it hard to film a video because my day doesn't start until like 2 p.m. I wasn't happy with how prepared I was with every book. Wrote down all my thoughts. I'm a little bit more prepared, so hopefully today I can get my thoughts out a little bit faster. So let's start. First is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. Cemetery Boys, if you haven't heard about it, it is a YA contemporary fantasy about a boy named Yadriel. He's trans and he's trying to prove to his transphobic Latin family that he is a brujo or a witch. In order to prove to his family that he is a brujo, he tries to bring back the spirit and the ghost of his late cousin Miguel, but instead accidentally brings back the spirit of kind of like one of the resident bad boys, Julian Diaz. I loved the Latin representation, especially because gay representation and trans representation is really lacking in Latin media and Latin culture in general. I love it. I think this book is beautiful, and I definitely will be reading all of Aiden Thomas's books from now on. I think their writing is impeccable and so beautiful, and I'm so excited for their 2021 release, but I do have some issues with it, and it's mostly the plot or the pacing of this book. The book is 340 pages, and the plot doesn't start until page 260, 270. Mostly, I wish that the book really didn't try to do this whole apocalyptic kind of climax. I wish it was definitely a much more intimate commentary on transphobia and masculinity, and I wish we solely focused on Yad's and Jules's relationship rather than trying to bring about the literal end of the world. So for that, I'm definitely putting it into Miss Connie tier. Next up is actually Down Among the Sticks and Bones and Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. These are books 1 and 2 in the Wayward Children series. There are children who find doorways into these fantasy magical worlds that are meant and tailored specifically for them. But sometimes, for one reason or another, that magic runs out and they end up tumbling back to our world, the magic-less world. The first book, Every Heart a Doorway, follows a girl named Nancy who finds her way to Eleanor West's home for wayward children. The first book is just an introduction to the world, where the second that Nancy gets there, kids and classmates start getting murdered. And the second book, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, follows Jack and Jill, which are the two twin sisters that we were introduced to in the first book, and kind of their childhood, their upbringing, and specifically what their life was like in the Moors, which is their world. I think this series is absolutely incredible. I read it because of Books and Lala Kayla's recommendation. I'm definitely going to try to read this entire series. I actually ordered all of the books for myself and they're actually coming in from Book Depository hopefully soon. I expect all of these books to get 5 stars. I'm going to continue reading this series until it ends. Both of these books are going in Ratatouille. Next, we actually have Bunny by Mona Awad. Also a Kayla recommendation that I decided to pick up. It's a dark academia book and it follows a graduate student hates this group of girls, this clique called the Bunnies, but her tune changes a little bit when she gets an invitation from the Bunnies to attend their smut salon. And it's kind of Sam, the main character's kind of falling down the rabbit hole of this cultish grip that they have on each other. Definitely giving you guys trigger warnings for gore, really graphic depictions of like animal violence and animal rituals. There's drugging, there's kidnapping, and there's also self-mutilation within this book. This book is split up into 3 parts. I loved the first one, and then that second part really like dropped, and the third part got so fucked up and went to a place I did not want it to. I did not expect it. I did not appreciate it. I did not like it. And for that, this is absolutely going into upsetting Hank Green. It started off so strong and disappointed me so badly at the end that there's no other category that this could be in. Next up is actually 3 books that I'm putting in together. Riley Sager, this in 2020, I read Final Girls, Last Time I Lied, and Home Before Dark. His first book, Final Girls, I gave 1 star. I hated it. And I knew I would hate it from the second that it described to me in detail how the main character, whatever her name was, licked and sucked on her fiance's hairy nipple while they were in coitus. Last Time I Lied, I really hated, but it really saved itself at the end. Home Before Dark, I actually read for the Literally Dead book club, and I really enjoyed it. Home Before Dark is about a girl named Maggie who, when she was a child, her family lived in this house and bought this mansion called Bainbury Hall. And 20 days after they first moved in, they ran out of the house screaming and said that the house was haunted and that they would never go back. The dad, who was a journalist, actually ended up making a book about the whole experience, ended up being a bestseller, and that book has haunted Maggie's life since it was published. Her dad actually passes away, and she discovers from the lawyer that her dad still owns Bainbury Hall. And so she, being an interior designer, goes back to the house against the mother's wishes, says to her mom that it's so that she can rebuild the house, but in reality, Maggie's actually going back to the house to try to figure out the secrets of what actually happened several years ago. I wouldn't necessarily say it's mixed media, but it definitely flashes from the present of Maggie renovating this house, finding out its secrets, and interviewing people in the town, to the past that's actually excerpts from the dad's book. So it kind of jumps back and forth. I thought the pacing and the changes that Riley Sager, when he switched from the book to the present, I thought those were so well done, kept me on the edge of my seat, and they kind of hinted at each other. And this is where I get to the spoiler, so if you guys don't want to be spoiled by any of these books, or actually any 4 of Riley Sager's books, then I would highly recommend, I'm going to put a spoiler alert on the screen and let you, so you can know when to finally tune back in. But the thing that I really disliked about these books, and actually all 4 of Riley Sager's books, is that they all do the same trope of the one man that the main character has interest in is a plot device. He's always a twist. There's always some subterfuge, or they're always suspected of being traitorous. By now, it's not a plot twist. It's not creative. I think it's just very boring and overdone. And when it happened again, for the 4th time now, in Home Before Dark, I couldn't help but just roll my eyes. Home Before Dark is definitely going into the Miss Connie tier, just because while I do really love it, something is just holding me back. There is a tiny flaw that I see. Final Girls, absolutely going in straight and conservative TikTok. And the last time I lied, interestingly enough, for the opposite reasons of Bunny, I'm going to put it in that 2nd tier. Next is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. And this book actually follows a girl named Star and her story after she's the only witness to her friend Khalil dying at the hands of a police officer from a gun shop. I don't want to say anything more because if you've read this book, you understand why it's incredible. And if you haven't read this book, it doesn't matter what the plot should be, you need to pick it up. The topics that this book covers about Black lives, Black culture and trauma, police brutality, discrimination, racism, it's so important and so vital that we read it. And it has been on the bestsellers list for weeks for a reason. This is such an important book and is absolutely going in the top tier of books I read last year. So next up is actually a couple of the graphic novels that I read throughout the year. First up is Fence by C.S. Pacat. And this one, it's pretty forgettable, honestly. It's just about a team of boys at this boarding school who try to become professional fencers. It was okay, so I'm putting it in Divinky. Next up is Witchlight by Jessie Zabarski. This one, actually, I really like, and I actually haven't seen a lot of people talking about this, graphic novel. So it actually follows a witch named Lelik, who kidnaps this peasant girl named Sanja, and it's kind of their tentative friendship, love story, relationship as they travel around and try to find Lelik's missing half, the other half of her soul, that's the source of all of her magic. So not only is this fantasy, not only is it a graphic novel, which I love, but it also has fat and plus size representation. There's a dark-skinned main character, and it is a mixed race, women loving women, gay relationship. I thought it was so sweet, so cute. So for this, I'm actually going to put it in Ratatouille. I think I might have only given it 4 stars on Goodreads, but overall it was, I think, one of the best graphic novels I read last year, and I definitely really recommend it. Next up is Primer by Jennifer Moreau. And it was cute. It's just about this girl named Ashley. She finally ends up with these 2 foster parents. Her foster mom works for the government and is a scientist and is kind of creating the next big military technology. And this technology is paint that gives you superpowers. Overall, just Divinky. It was fine. And then it's Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker. I thought this was adorable. I actually don't know if my little sister read this one as well, but it's the story of a witch named Nova and her friend named Tam, and they meet after years because Tam is coming back to town to ask for Nova's help because someone is taking werewolves and trying to harness their power, and Tam needs the help of Nova. It is a queer romance, it is gay witches, non-binary werewolves, and it also has hard of hearing representation. Overall, I thought it was really cute. It suffered really severely from pacing, and the reveal of the villain really wasn't that believable. So for that, also gonna put it in DaVinci. The next book I read was The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. It's about Anna, who's agoraphobic, who developed agoraphobia after suffering a huge car accident. And so she kind of just drinks wine and watches her neighbors around the cul-de-sac with her binoculars until one day a new family moves in to the cul-de-sac and Anna thinks she's witnessed a murder. Definitely for this book, I'm giving trigger warnings for drug and alcohol abuse, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of confusion, and this took turns and did reveals that I didn't expect. I don't necessarily know why I didn't give it a full 5 stars on Goodreads. I think it's mostly because Anna at some points really started to frustrate me. So for that, I'm gonna put it in really easily the Miss Connie 4 tier. Next up is Dumplin' by Julie Murphy. I loved the fat representation in this. It follows Willow Dean and her kind of like standing up and kind of like shaking up her small town after she and a couple of rejects from her school decide to prove what beauty standards actually mean and sign up for the beauty pageant. I definitely think it was published when I checked in 2015. And I definitely think in these past 6 years, we've done a lot in terms of body positivity and body neutrality. I can absolutely see why people rated it so low and why so many people have a problem with it. I just think the ending really, really suffered for me. It fell so flat. And for that, I'm just gonna put it in DaVinci. Next is 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. This one is about a bookseller named Malcolm who actually years ago on his blog compiled a list of the 8 most perfect murders that he saw and has read in books. One day, an FBI agent comes to his door and presents to Mal this list of seemingly unrelated murders that actually have a connection and a relation to the murders that Mal put on that list so many years ago. While it was really smart, I found it so boring. I found the ending to be a complete snooze fest. And for how much other people seem to like it on BookTube, I really did not enjoy it. For that, I think I'll just put it in DaVinci. Next up, I think, is my favorite book that I read in 2020. So this book follows a girl named Lee that after the suicide of her mother, she is convinced that her mother turned into a bird. And she follows this bird and follows her mother's trail all the way to Taiwan. And this story is all about grief and love and loss and family and friendship. And I'm like tearing up talking about it because it has so much despair, but it also has so much love in it. And the way that Emily X. Arpan uses art and uses color to talk about emotion and to bring about all these really complex things that Lee is feeling in her grief, I thought was absolutely beautiful. It is absolutely, without a doubt, the best book I read in 2020. And for that, it's going in the top tier. I wish I made a higher tier specifically for that book alone because it is flawless. Next is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I read this specifically off of Meg's recommendation. This was also a book of the month pick for me, but it just follows multiple characters that are on this remote island in Scotland attending this like intimate wedding. At the beginning of the book, we know someone is murdered, but we spend the rest of the book kind of jumping back and forth from past to present, both trying to figure out all of the intentions of the people at the wedding, but also trying to figure out the identity of the person that died. I think I felt the complete opposite about this book than other people did. I loved the beginning and was really disappointed by the ending. I kind of don't get the hype with it. So for that, definitely putting it in just middle of the road. Next up is Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed. This is also a really hard-hitting contemporary, and it follows three girls, Grace, Rosina, and Erin, as they try to avenge sexual assault of a classmate without their intention, fighting and standing up against the misogyny and the rape culture at their school. This book left me shaking with feminine rage. I was just so hyped and I was so excited, and women, just women and our power and our fierceness, and I loved it. For me, I absolutely loved it, and this is going in top tier as well. Next is The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. It follows Cal, who's a blogger and this huge up-and-coming social media journalist, and his kind of distant father gets selected to be part of NASA's next expedition to Mars. So Cal has to move from New York to Houston as his dad participates and trains for this expedition. And there he meets another astro kid, as they call it, named Leon. This is one of the only books that I listened to as an audiobook. Really liked the narrator. I really liked Cal, but I really did not believe in his relationship with Leon, since this book is so reliant on their romance, and I really didn't believe in it. I really didn't like it that much. Next is the second audiobook that I listened to, and it is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. And this follows a girl named Xiomara. It's really short. It's actually only a 3-hour audiobook where it's all told in Xiomara's poems. All kind of deals with Xiomara and her coming of age and her finding her love in her poetry and kind of standing up against her very religious mother. It's absolutely going in Ratatusical, and as well is going to be the second Elizabeth Acevedo book that I read in 2020, which is With the Fire on High. With the Fire on High follows a girl named Imoni, and who gave birth to baby girl, her daughter Emma, when she was a really young teenager. So we're literally just following Imani in her last year of high school as she kind of struggles with a relationship with a new boy named Nikolai who moved to school, her relationship with her father and her grandmother, and specifically what she's going to do in the future. I thought this was beautiful. Again, I don't think Elizabeth Acevedo can do any wrong. I have her third book, Clap When You Land, on my to-be-read shelf as well, and I'm excited to get to that this year as well. Next is actually the 2 books in the Sailor Moon Crystal manga series. These ones I actually didn't even put a rating on in Goodreads because while I hate the new art style, while I don't really like the plots of these comics and I don't think they're that great, they are really tainted with nostalgia for me. And both of these then are just going with Da Vinci. I can't really say anything bad just because how much I love the IP so much. But overall, as a plot and as an art and a graphic novel overall, it's perfectly fine. So now we're actually getting into a bunch of the books that I read at closer to the beginning of 2020. Illumine by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This one is ill-timed because if you don't know about it, it's a sci-fi apocalyptic book, and it's about this war between 2 mega corporations has completely decimated this planet and has forced all of the survivors from this planet to take refuge in these 3 spaceships. It is specifically focusing on Katie and Ezra, who are actually exes the day that the planet was invaded was the day they broke up, and it's forcing them to come back together and save this book and everyone in it from not just a hostile AI that's like gaining intelligence and emotion, but also a plague that's going around and killing people and turning everyone on the ship into zombies. It was just not a great timing, and I think that's why it took me so long to read. But overall, I thought it was so well done and so good, and I cannot wait to read the next 2 books in the series, which are Gemina and Obsidio. So for that, it's going in the top tier as well. Next is Hungry Hearts. It's an anthology, so there's multiple authors, but it just follows these like interconnected stories of people that live in this and work at this kind of neighborhood of restaurants. Overall, it's just talking about kind of like the symbolism of food and what food can mean culturally and what food means to people. I think as I read them, I rated every book separately, and I think it probably averaged to only like a low 3. So, happy medium, I'm just gonna put it in Da Vinci. Next is Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. It follows a girl named Millie who just got a scholarship to go to this really prestigious boarding school in Scotland. But her dreams kind of come crashing down when her roommate is like this super bitchy, stuck-up girl who also happens to be Princess of Scotland. So Millie and Flora, it's an enemies to friends to lovers romance. I'm all about it. I love it so much. I don't know what my complaint is. It wasn't a full 5 stars, and I couldn't find a real complaint of mine in Goodreads. I think the ending was just a little bit rushed maybe, but overall I'm just happy with putting it in the 4th tier with Miss Connie. Next up is actually 3 books that go hand in hand. It is Alice Oseman's The Heartstopper series. So we have Heartstopper 1, Heartstopper 2, and Heartstopper 3. This series follows 2 kids, one boy named Charlie and one boy named Nick. The first Heartstopper book, it follows Charlie as he's the first out gay kid at his all-boys school, and he gains the attention and the friendship of popular boy named Nick. And despite Charlie knowing that Nick is straight and Nick won't like him, he ends up falling for him, and it surprises both of them when Nick actually starts developing feelings for Charlie too. So the first book is all about their friendship and then connecting and kind of the feelings blossoming between both of them. The second book, the second Heartstopper book, is all about Nick and kind of defining and identifying his bisexuality. And then the third book, we actually go abroad to France, and it's them on a field trip and then kind of dealing with what it means to come out and if you have to come out at all to people. I will say, kind of give some warnings that it seems like this series is going to go in a direction that deals with eating disorders, anxiety, suicide. These graphic novels are flawless. The drawings and the writing are so cute. I cannot wait to get my hands on the 4th one. And all 3 of these are absolutely going into the top tier. So next thing that I read is The Diviners by Libba Bray. And this takes place in 1920s New York, follows a girl named Evie O'Neill, and Evie is hiding a secret, and is that she has the supernatural power of touching an object and then being able to read that object's history. People's bodies end up in different parts of New York with symbols like drawn into them and pieces of their body missing. Evie realizes that she might be the only person that's able to stop whatever's going on. Evie's not the only person that has these supernatural powers. All of these people, we meet different people with different powers throughout the book. They're all called diviners, and the diviners are waking up again. And with the diviners waking up, there's also a big, bad, a darkness that is awoken as well. I really, really loved this book. I listened to it as an audiobook, and that's probably how I'm going to listen to the rest of the series because the narrator does such a fantastic job with the voices and the feeling of the 1920s. I don't think I gave this a full 5 stars, and it doesn't feel right to put it in the very top tier. So I'm just gonna put it in Miss Connie. I feel happy, I feel satisfied there. Next up is another popular book on BookTube, and it is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is about Kaz Brecker, who's kind of like a crime prodigy, and he is given the opportunity of a lifetime to commit one of the biggest heists and steals possible. He has to assemble the perfect crew of people to kind of pull off this heist. There's definitely a learning curve with this book since I have no introduction to the Shadow and Bone trilogy. It was so hard to get into this because there were so many words and so much of the world I didn't understand. But once I finally got into it, it went so quickly. I completely understand the hype behind the series, the hype behind Leigh Bardugo. While I don't think I gave it 5 stars just because of how long it took me, I can tell with my reread I'm gonna love it a lot more, so this is going in top tier. Next is The Other People by C.J. Tudor. It's about this guy named Gabe who one day sees his daughter getting kidnapped, and years go by, everyone is convinced that his daughter Izzy is dead. Gabe thinks otherwise. And there's also another part of the story where there is a woman, Fran, and her daughter Alice, and they are on the run because Fran knows what really happened to Gabe's daughter. I thought the buildup was very interesting, but at the very end, it took a paranormal twist that I didn't like, which I feel like is very unusual for me. So I'll put it in Da Vinci. Next is Love Boat Taipei! This is by far one of the worst books I think I've ever read. I fucking hated this book. This is a spoiler section because I can't talk about what I hated about this book without spoiling it. Girl and her best friend, like her roommate, take consensual nude photos of them, professional nude photos of themselves, but then the best friend, in a jealous fit of rage, prints the photos and scatters them around the school, and all of the kids in the program see the main character's nudes. There is an uneven love triangle, which I hate. And if it is uneven, if it's isosceles, if it's an uneven love triangle, I don't fuck with it. And the thing that pissed me off the most is that one character is physically and emotionally abused by his father, and our character does nothing. Imagine someone looking at you being like, yeah, my dad hits me and abuses me and gaslights me, and you're like, that sucks.
I'm gonna invite him to the school play. I'm gonna invite him to your art show.
Absolutely not. I thought this book was so toxic. This book, I truly do not want anyone to read it. Or I want someone to read it and then hate it as much as I do so we can talk about how much we hate it. Straight TikTok. To pump myself up and make myself feel a little better, we have The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. This is about Prince Sebastian, who by day is a prince. By night, he actually dresses up as this woman named Lady Crystalia. Person that makes his dresses is Sebastian's best friend, Francis. Francis wants to be a fashion designer. Sebastian wants his secret to be kept a secret, but Francis wants to claim her fashion as her own. So I thought this was beautiful. The romance was so well done, and the friendship. The ending, it was cringy, but it was really sweet. So overall, this one definitely gets Miss Connie for me. Or, no, I'm gonna put it in Rabbitusical. I just think it's perfect. Gabby, my little sister, really, really loved it, so that's where it goes. Dark and Deepest Red by Anne-Marie McLemore. I want to give Anne-Marie McLemore a chance, but I just don't fuck with their writing. I think it's a little too flowery. Jumps from the past and the present, but each chapter is only like 2 or 3 pages. So you jump from the past, you only spend like 2 pages with the characters, and then you jump to the present. I'm not even joking when I say it gave me a several day long migraine from trying to wrap my head around this book. So this is absolutely, weirdly enough, an LGBT book is going in straight TikTok. I don't know what else to tell you. Next is The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. This is the 3rd book in the Truly Devious series, so I don't want to give a lot of the plot away of this book, but we just follow Stevie, who's obsessed with mystery and crime solving and like crime podcasts. She goes to this school specifically to figure out the murder, kidnapping, and disappearance that happened so many years ago. By this 3rd book, there have been several secrets unveiled, several murders have happened in both the past and the present, and it's just Stevie trying to unravel it all. It was so cute. I loved the callbacks. I loved the ending. So this is so easily for me going in Ratatouille. I hope you get this message by Farah Naz Rishi. Is about 3 teens and literally just talking about if you knew when you were gonna die, what would you do? It was fine, pretty forgettable. The last 2 books, one is a complete win, one of my favorites, and one is one of my least favorite books of the year. The top book is The Last True Poets of the Sea by Julia Drake. This follows party girl Violet, whose life and outlook kind of changes when her twin brother Sam attempts to commit suicide. While he's in treatment, her family ships her off to Lyric, Maine. There, Violet meets a girl named Liv, and with the help of Liv's friends, Violet tries to hunt down the shipwreck, the Lyric shipwreck, that her and Sam were obsessed with as kids. It's an exploration of family, grief, and sibling relationships. This book was just so healing to me. This is absolutely going in the top tier. And last but not least is The How and the Why. This is absolutely very easily going into upsetting Hank Green. I know that a ton of people really like this book, but I really dislike it. It's about this girl named Cass who's adopted, who says she's totally fine with being adopted, but she still wants to know about her birth family. And it kind of flashes in between her and then letters that S, Cass's birth mother, wrote to Cass while she was a pregnant teen. I loved S's letters. I loved what S was going through and the commentary on teen pregnancy. But I absolutely hated Cass. I hated how she treated her family, hated how she treated her best friend. I did not like that Cynthia Hand used a character coming out as gay as a plot twist, but also as a plot device to make the ending not seem incestual. I want that to sink in. I want that to rattle around in your brains for just a little bit. This book pissed me off. Simply not the last year because the letters saved it. This is my final ranking. Overall, I'm really happy that I definitely have more highly ranked books than lower ranked books. I hope in 2021 that I can definitely read not just more books. I hope that I finally get better at really reading books that will actually resonate, and I think I'm finally starting to figure that out. My happy thing that's making me happy right now is this little Lego set I got myself for Christmas of Daisy May from Animal Crossing. But then look! I love her. She's perfect. Anyway, guys, Daisy May and I hope that you guys have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with any of my opinions or hopefully agree with any of my opinions. And please let me know your recommendations. I want to read more wins in 2021. So, bye.